live on YouTube. Let me just make sure I'm recording. You're going to record on your end?
Yeah, that's a great reminder.
All right. Recording on this computer. And this is Male Entrepreneur Podcast, episode number 167. And we are live in 3, 2. All right, welcome back to the Male Entrepreneur Podcast, the podcast for men who win, with your host, Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good, man. How are you doing? It's a beautiful day here too. It's pretty nice. It's getting sunny out there.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the day. It's spring and fall are my two favorite times of year because it starts to get warm again and then it starts to cool off again. So yeah, I'm loving it right now, man.
Yeah, those are good seasons. This is when the flowers are coming out and the trees are looking nice. My kids are out there picking flowers all the time, so it's kind of fun.
Nice. So last week or the week before, we did an episode and we were kind of griping on Microsoft. And I thought, with the fact that Bill Gates just recently announced he's going to be getting divorced from Melinda Gates, I thought we might give him a break for an episode or two, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah, my wife was actually saying that yesterday too. She's like, "Did you hear that he's getting divorced?" And I said, "Yeah." I don't know how much. Obviously, he's a shareholder of Microsoft. I don't know how much impact he's still having or how much involvement he has with Microsoft right now. I don't really care because I think Microsoft has they're a good company. I like their software. I think they do well in software. I think they just have poor service, man. And I talked about that last time. So I'm super excited because I just bought a new computer yesterday and it was like a night and day experience. And that's something that I wanted to share because it all comes back to the experience that you create for your clients. Because, man, that can make a world of a difference for your business. Because I have literally boycotted Microsoft's hardware now. I will not buy another Microsoft hardware product again, ever in my entire lifetime.
Man, that hurts because my last favorite computer was actually the Microsoft Surface, and I had a Surface Pro 4, I think. And then you told me all the stuff that went wrong with yours, and I have an iPad now that I do most of my mobile work on, iPad Pro, but I have often considered going back to the Surface because the iPad Pro just doesn't do a lot of the stuff I need it to do. But then when you told me your story, and if listeners want to hear it, go check out episode a couple weeks back. But that made me not want to get a Surface Pro. And so I was like worried. I was like, well, what am I going to do when I finally have the balls to stop using this iPad?
Well, you know what? Go Lenovo, and that's what I did. And that was night and day. I love Surface, right? I have a Surface Pro 4 too, and hopefully it doesn't die. That's one of the main reasons why I needed to get something new, because the battery was defective and it literally just shuts down on its own. So hopefully while we're doing this episode, it keeps going and lasts for the next 20 minutes. But it's I love the Surface. Like, I love the functionality. I love that. I just don't like the service. I just don't like how Microsoft dealt with it. I don't like how Microsoft has positioned themselves in the market now. But ultimately, what had happened was I called them, and I don't know if I talked about it in the last podcast, but I had called the last call I had with them. The gentleman didn't give me great service. He said, "You have to pay $800 and we'll give you a refurbished Microsoft Surface Pro 4. So the same model, a refurbished one with a 3-month warranty." And I said, "That doesn't do me any good. What can you help me with? Can you send me to a manager?" And he refused to. And he literally hung up on me. That's how awesome the service was. But here's what ended up happening. I called Lenovo yesterday because my brother said, maybe you should check out Lenovo. I'm like, okay, I've never had a Lenovo product before. My kids have a laptop. I think my wife bought it for them. I'm not sure, but I'll check it out. I called them up. It was like night and day. First of all, I got a hold of someone on the first call. And it was nice because I didn't have to get transferred to 3 different departments like I did on Microsoft. And I talked to a live person who was a real cool human being who treated me with respect. We were on the phone for about 45 minutes because he showed me all these different options. And man, it was refreshing. It was like talking to another human being. And my blood pressure did not go up a bit, like a beat. Whereas with Microsoft, you know what? I should have been checking my monitor because it would have been a completely different, you could say, uh, rating of my heart. So I walked out of there. I bought a computer. I was super happy. I'm going to rave about it to everybody else. And I'm going to be talking about it. You want a computer, hardware? Go to Lenovo.
This show is not sponsored by Lenovo, by the way.
I should reach out to them though.
Right. So here's a weird side tangent, and I'm just going to get your take on it because I know this is something that you're kind of a geek about. But I've I've noticed that you can tell whether someone's smiling or not on the other end of a phone call, and you can tell just by the tone of their voice. It's weird, just by the tone of their voice or the way they enunciate certain words. You can tell the mood that somebody has, and if you're doing something over the phone, trying to get customer service or trying to get information, if they're short with you, if they're impatient, if it sounds like they don't want to talk to you, uh, it makes that experience bad. It makes it to where, like in your instance, where you're like, I'm just not going to do business with this company again. And then having somebody do the opposite, you're just like, I'm going to do a whole podcast talking about this company. My question is, and I'm hoping you'll have some sort of insight on it. Google has this technology where they have an AI that's able to talk to people,
Mm.
and it's able to work as a personal assistant. It can set up meetings for you. It can respond to questions. And the technology is pretty freaking amazing. If you didn't know you were talking to an AI, you might not know if you didn't, if someone didn't tell you, hey, this is an example of the AI, you might not be able to tell that you weren't talking to a real person. And I'm wondering how long until technology like that starts taking over the service of these guys who just get short with you and hang up the phone on you.
That's a really good question. I think technology is getting there. If you take a look at what now we're getting into the neuroscience aspect, because if you speak to neuroscientists, for example, they say that AI is getting making progress, but it's still nowhere close to where the human brain capacity is because we are an emotional being. And one thing that differentiates us between AI is what we call an embodied experience, which means our brain is designed to move our bodies and actually be functional with our bodies, which means that it's there. If we didn't have a body, our brain wouldn't be working properly the way it's designed. AI doesn't have a body. So it doesn't have those. Even if you could try to program it to have certain emotions or read emotions, it's still not going to have that same level because it's not attached to a body. And that is the prime difference between a human brain and, you can say, microchips and AI, because we are also biochemical, meaning that we have chemicals running through us, whereas AI is just electrical signals. And that's a big difference. And I think that's a big misconception. Now I'm kind of getting geeky into the world, but I've looked into this quite a bit. And I know AI has made major progress, but at this point, neuroscientists don't believe, some do, some don't, but they don't fully believe that AI will ever get to the point where you can have those deep emotional conversations with people with an AI platform. Now, you might be hearing some thumping in the background, and that's my son walking around when he knows he should be in his room doing his homework.
So I guess my overall question was, if it gets to the point where it doesn't actually have emotions, but it can fake emotions, how many companies are going to be like, you know what, we're sick of these people that we hire to do customer service, and they just make our customers mad. They're driving away our customers. Let's go ahead and just replace them with somebody, or replace them with a robot that can fake sincerity, can fake a smile. And I, again, I think most people might get on the phone and not even realize that they're talking with an AI. And
Mhm.
one of the worst things that anybody can experience is getting on the phone with customer service and just having a bad experience. And I just wonder, like, how long until this starts becoming more widely adopted, and what kind of impact it possibly will have on relations with customers.
Really good question. So I'm going to go into it deep here because we took a look at this when I was in the banking sector years ago. And a lot of financial institutions have continued to move this way and some haven't. They've kind of pulled back. But a lot went into investing in technology. So automated phone services, automated financial advising services. And what they realized was when you have an automated person or an automated system on the other end, you don't build those relationships as deep as you could with a human being. And therefore, you are missing out on a sales opportunity. And that's when banks and financial institutions realize, holy crap, we're trying to save money. We're trying to make it more efficient, but we're losing the relationship side. And therefore, we are losing sales. And I think there will probably be some hybrid. Here's where AI is really functional, is to do high-end computations that humans can't do, for example, right? Is run 50 different algorithms at the same time. For example, if we have a doctor that's looking at a patient, they can only think of one thing consciously at a time, where an AI program can look at an X-ray, for example, and run 50 different simulations and say, this one could potentially be the best option for this patient, or this is the best diagnosis. Whereas for a doctor, it may take them a few hours. That's where AI is important. But if you're trying to get an AI to tell that patient, hey, look, we're sorry you got cancer, that's different than the doctor actually having those personal conversations. So I think we have to be very aware and conscious of this. I think we have companies like Amazon, we have companies like Google that are going to push it forward, like Facebook. We know that these are massive companies that go based on mass, right? A mass customer base. I think if your strategy is to go on a mass customer base and you have a monopoly like these companies do, it will work. But if you don't have a monopoly, my gut tells me, our research tells us that when you put business A beside business B and they have relatively the same level of products or services, business A has better personal touch than B, A will win.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have customers that basically stay with you longer. They'll talk about you. There's an emotional connection. These are the elements. And I'll give you a prime example. I was talking to a client yesterday where they were talking about um, their retail locations. They're a big chemical company. They produce these chemicals for the local community, and they have two sets of or segments of clients. They have a segment of clients that likes to come in and have chit chat with the people in the retail locations. They'll sit around for hours and just have conversations, have coffee, and then they have a completely retail segment that just comes in and says, "I need to buy this," and I'm out. And they're like, well, what do we do here? Well, I said, you know what? We got to be really careful when we're working with this, because if you make it too much of a retail, you're going to lose those long-standing relationships, right? So there has to be some kind of a hybrid approach, and you can do that. And I know we're kind of getting off topic here, but this is really important. And I think this is where COVID really, if you get anything out of COVID, get this, is that you cannot replace human in-person relationships. Everybody is zoomed out right now. You talk to people, they're like, I want to just go out and meet someone. I want to do a live workshop. I want to get into a real life event. I want to go to a concert. I want to go to a bar and talk to real life people and have a drink. That will never be replaced by technology. As much as you try to, virtual reality is going that way. Well, let's go on another tangent. The US basic military just spent $26 billion on a contract with Microsoft for virtual reality. That's great. But what about everybody else that needs a healthcare system, all this kind of stuff, right? There's so much being spent on technology that I think, who is it that I had a conversation with? It was a gentleman. He actually used to be, his name is Pedram Soche. Actually, we're going to see if we can get him on the podcast. But he's a well-known, for example, a doctor. He was a monk in the past, for example. He's just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to living life and philosophy. And we were talking about how we have Elon Musk that's trying to send us to Mars, and we're trying to do space mining and all this kind of crap. But what about all the people on Earth here? We got 7 billion people on Earth here that need help. We got 7 billion people here that technology is, helping us to a certain degree, but is it really making the quality of our life really better? So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to save this rant for another episode, because I think this is important, because this lesson is coming out very strong for a lot of people, is that technology, no matter how good it is, will not be able to replace that in-person interaction.
I'm not going to let you stop the I want to keep going with it. We've seen there was a movie a couple years ago that came out where a guy like created an AI on his phone, I think, that was like replacement for his girlfriend, and he ended up falling in love with it. And we've seen movies like Blade Runner, where the AI and the artificial intelligence and the cyborgs get so realistic that they pass through the uncanny valley, and um, we can't figure out whether someone's real or not. Uh, Also, and we've talked about this before. There seems to be almost like a an arms race between America and
Mhm.
China right now in the development of AI.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on maybe some of the more disastrous places that this could lead.
Well, I truly believe that if the reason why people are looking at AI, if we take a look at what AI is being driven for, majority of it is for profit. That's the majority of why China is investing heavily. Actually, China is a global leader when it comes to AI right now, and that's why the United States is kind of freaking out because AI can do so much. You can break people's passwords through AI, for example. My web developer and I were having a conversation yesterday because he's like, all these, we have captcha forms and we're still getting spam come in. He's like, these AI bots are getting smarter and smarter and they're breaking codes now. So, people that have AI for the military, for example, it's going to be much easier to. It's technological warfare. That's what it is, right? It's no longer about having real soldiers. It's AI. That's what AI is going to be driven for, mainly profit and warfare. And so, whoever gets there first is going to ultimately have the upper hand. Do I believe that everybody has bad intentions for AI? No, I don't believe so. But if you took a look at where the majority of investments are going, they're going in those two areas, military and profit. I think it can help human beings overall. But there's something, human beings, I, I don't know where to go with this, Nathan, because I feel inside, I feel sad. I really do. I really feel sad for the human race. And I'm a total optimist. But I feel sad because we have these technologies, we have our smartphones. You mentioned, your cell phones are like people's boyfriends and girlfriends now.
Mm.
That is, they have a relationship with them, even deeper than their spouse or their kids, right? It's unfortunately sad. But when things go sideways, we crave the human interaction. We crave other people. There's nothing like sitting down on a couch with someone next to you that you can feel their physical presence. That will not change. When it comes to business, here's my prediction when it comes to post-COVID. There's a lot of businesses that are going out of business, and they're still going out of business fast. But the businesses that can rebound and create a superior experience for in-person interactions will kill it. They will absolutely kill it because the market is like it's pent up demand. Just like travel agencies, there's a pent up demand. People are going to go on vacations like crazy. All this kind of stuff is pent up demand. So I believe that in person is not dead. I believe technology, yes, there's a hybrid, but I believe that we're going to see a resurgence here. It's the companies that do it the best that are going to get the upper hand.
Yeah, and I think just to tie it back to how we started the show, just the fact that by calling this guy at Lenovo and the fact that he was willing to take some time and talk to you in person and walk you through stuff and establish uh, I guess just to say it, a relationship with a customer.
Hmm.
Um, that is, I think that you're right. I think that that's going to be one of the things that gives the winners in the upcoming when everything sorts itself out. I think that that's going to be what gives the winners the cutting edge above everybody else.
And there's something else I just want to add the last bit here because the one thing during that 45-minute conversation, this is something that AI will not be able to do is to be able to tell a story that's real
Mm.
because there's no AI that could say, here's what happened with me and this gentleman. We were talking, and he's like, well, what do you need this computer for? So I gave him my specs. I said, I podcast, I do this. He's like, oh, cool. Like, you podcast. He's like, I kind of do some podcasting too. What kind of mic do you have? And I'm like, Blue Yeti. And he's like, oh, that's super awesome. I love the Blue Yeti. He's like, I've been thinking about getting it, but it's expensive. I'm like, I bought it when it was super cheap. So we had these awesome conversations and connected over podcasting. and over Blue Yeti. Can you imagine an AI bot trying to say that? Hey, yeah, I'm a podcast. Yeah, okay, you're a computer. I know, there's no way you can tell me that you have life experience when it comes to this. That's something you'll never be able to do with technology.
Oh man, don't give them any ideas. We're gonna have AI podcasts pretty soon. Until then, though, if people want to check out more episodes of The Male Entrepreneur, where's the best place to go?
Well, two places. The first one is youtubeformen.com, and the second one is malepodcast.com.
All right, man. And until next time, we will catch you later.
Can't wait.